Coming up, it's Fan Take Friday, and oh baby, the fan base does not appreciate the way Cam Johnson thinks about the way the fan base thinks about the Brooklyn Nets' inability to tank effectively. We talk about that, plus D'Angelo Russell next season, the schedule ahead. Oh, it's all coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrecht. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We are 100% free on all the great platforms, and let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Get over to FanDuel today. And Doug, Fan Take Friday is usually a fun mix, speculative ideas, chopping it up on random stuff. But instead, off of Eric Slater's reporting and interview questions with one Cam Johnson, fan base not happy. They don't appreciate when a player calls out the fans for judging the fact that they're giving effort on a night in, night out basis.
I didn't think that we could get a season that's like any more Netsian than it already was, where it's just like the last 5 years have been a total dumpster fire in every possible way. When you judge it expectation to results, right? Like when you go from expectation to results, the last 5 years have been a total mess. Except for like the Bucks series, the fourth quarter of the Bucks series where it looks like they're going to be able to pull through. Every single other thing basically along the way has been a total mess. And so it can't go any other way than now the players versus the fans around what should be happening on the court. And it wouldn't matter, except now the players, I mean, good on the reporters and stuff. And Eric's the best. Like, we love Eric, friend of the show. Okay. So it's like all good. But the part where now the players are commenting on the fans not wanting to win and feel the need to speak about this, it's just so great because it can't, like, what other way could it go? What other way could this go? The players, to their credit, are out there busting their absolute ass every single night, pulling wins out of complete nowhere, defying all statistical probabilities, where these things, lowest points in the league over the seven games, 6-1, right? And the players are like, we're getting a hard time because we're winning. Like, it probably, if you're a player, it has to be.
Of course,
you have to figure you're in the twilight. You think you're in the twilight zone. You're probably thinking you're in the twilight zone. It's like it's so amazing. I love it. It's so terrible, but it's amazing.
Oh, it's the best. Nic Claxton also gave a diplomatic answer, said, I understand where the fans are coming from. That one doesn't matter. It's only the Cam Johnson one, because when he was asked, it was Eric Slater asking him on fans wanting the Nets to tank this season. Yeah, and the beautiful part about his response is that before the question is fully asked, Cam Johnson interjects with, we don't care. Our job is not to try to get a draft pick. Our job is simply to win basketball games, and that's what we're going to put our full effort towards. If that's what they think, then they're not really a fan. And we heard from people over on social being like, call me out not being a fan. This is the best part about this to me. I don't know if you'll agree. They're actually, that commentary from Cam Johnson and the way the fans feel about not tanking, they're far more closely aligned in their frustrations than anyone realizes. The players don't. Cam Johnson didn't sign up to be a part of the team that organizationally wants to lose and get a high draft pick. He came in to compete. He was once on a roster with his best buddy, Mikal Bridges, and it's supposed to be, we're going to make the playoffs and we're going to add pieces to this. Within a season, all of a sudden we're trying to tank. Maybe we're going to eject you. I know we just paid you a big contract, but we don't actually think you're worth it. Or maybe we actually do think you're worth it, but too good. You might actually hurt our chance. Like, this is an organizational thing. So the players are as frustrated about the idea of having an organization that is actively trying to get you to lose games, doing everything in their power. The fan base hates it too. So that's the best part to me, is that fans reacting, going, I can't believe he'd say it. Like, yeah, he's frustrated too. You're actually like both angry about the same thing. And yet it escapes some fans that that's what's going on. Like, I love that Cam Johnson came out and said that, because you and I have said this all the time through the years. The players don't care about what next year is they care about and in the best way possible. They care about now, about competing, about winning, getting their next contracts. Like, that's what it's about for them. I don't know how you can't understand or appreciate that.
Dude, by the way, perfect summation. And I'm just going to yes and this, because you missed one other part. The part where Cam Johnson's like having the best season of his career. And not only And fans
Right,
are like, boo. Boo. And they're like, he's having the best season of his career. He's been amazing. He's been so good. People are like, boo. And they're like, get out of here. Which he has, like, so, right, which by the way, is clearly has filtered through to him because he cuts Eric off, not cuts him off, but he pre-answers the question because he knows where it's he knows where it's going. So he already knows, and you'd be under a rock if you didn't know, like, that this is how some parts of the fandom want this to go. Like, so, right, all this stuff, like you said, not what you signed up for, came here to do this, got traded in the first place. Oh, we're going to build something in Brooklyn. Bridges gets traded. He's stuck here. He plays awesome. Like, it's like we're like the top 50 best players in the league. That's how well he's playing this year from a shooting perspective. The efficiency's through the roof. You really can't like be better for like what he came over to do.
Yep.
Fans hate it. And are just pissed off that you're even still on the team because by some weird paradox of the universe, you're too good to be on this team. And none of it makes sense. It's like, it's so great. It's so great. And how could it go any other way than to come to a head through now they got to, and again, like just the back to the top, now we have to answer for this about like, why are we winning? Like what on earth are we talking about?
How dare you, sir? You explain to me right now. You're winning basketball games, the thing you're paid to do. You explain it to me. You explain it to me right now.
By the way, it's the NBA's fault. It's the NBA's fault that this 100%. Is the rule. Like it's not the Nets' fault. It's not the fans' fault. It's not the players' fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's the NBA's fault that they stick fans in teams in a position like this. I'm being dead serious. Like that's whose fault.
No, I know.
The system stinks. The system stinks. It incentivizes all the wrong things. It puts you in this weird place where you just, there's no other way to seemingly, get better as a team than to kind of like effectively get to the bottom of the draft. There's only one way to do that, to be bad. And then you have players that go out and play. They're never going to stop playing hard. And then they have to seemingly feel like they need to answer these. Eric's question is good, but they feel like they have to answer these questions. It's the NBA's fault for having it like this.
And this, which is the NBA's fault, incentivizes fan bases to do this, to be angry with their own players, to be angry and frustrated with
no one's wrong
team.
in this. Nobody's wrong. No exactly. Party is wrong. No party is wrong in this exchange. Like, the NBA is wrong. The NBA is wrong. No other party. The fans, I think, are correct in looking at the long game. The players are correct in playing hard. The coaches are correct in putting it out there every once in a while. Marks, we can make a case that like maybe it's gone a little weird with that one. And maybe it has because like maybe you could say he's put everyone in a weird position. I'm not even sure that's like totally cogent, but it's like everyone's just put in this awkward situation because of the stupid system, and that's all there is.
Coming up here in a second, I'll explain why Nicholas Claxton responded the way that he did to fans being upset. We'll also touch on D'Angelo Russell and whether or not we think he should be a part of, I mean, it's just insane to talk about, the long-term, quote-unquote, future of the Brooklyn Nets. We'll do that here on Fan Take Friday in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you about our friends over at DoorDash. NBA fans, you get ready. They swoosh, you save thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, the Dash Pass members, get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Maybe you want to get a 50-point game, celebrate, get some wings, pizza, burgers. Oh my God, I'm not even telling my kid about this one. From your favorite spot, delivered straight to your door. Staying up late to watch the highlights, just need a midnight snack, use Dash Pass to grab something delicious while saving big. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save when any player scores 50 or more in a game. She overheard me. It's on. I'll tell you right now. If she could be watching this.
Nets score 100 a game, so that's halfway home. Come on, we can
50 do that. Every night. It's on. It's fully game on now. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Use promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight. After a 50-point game on eligible orders, or participating merchants must have an active Dash Pass account. That's important. You have to have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more.
All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, Fan Take Friday, talking about you, the fans, and some other things going on around here. Before we move on to some D'Angelo Russell stuff, so here, as you mentioned there, because it crystallized in my head, Cam Johnson having the best season of his career, fans telling him how much they hate it, him saying, "Yeah, get bent, we don't care." In response to this, in response to the same
stop question. Scoring. Sorry, go ahead.
brick it. In response to the same basic question, Nicholas Claxton responded with, Well, it's part of the business. We're not naive to it. We're going to go out and try to win every game. But I understand where the fans are coming from. I feel why they would want us to lose this year, but we want to win. Now, you may say, oh, Nicholas Claxton gets it. He's simpatico with the fan base. No, Nicholas Claxton's been having a bad year. So when you're having a bad season, you're going to kind of be a little more agreeable to the idea of criticisms from the fan base. Because guess what? This has been rough for me, and I'm going to be making more money next. I'm going to be making the same big check next year, and I'm still going to be here. And I know that fans, like you said, trickles down. Well, I've heard that the fans wanted me traded. They wanted me traded at the deadline. They want me traded this offseason, all that stuff, right? So I do think that, like, this is the game that gets played too. Cam Johnson, he's puffing his chest out. Having the season of my life. Can't stop me. You want to trade me? Great. Contenders wanted to pursue me at the deadline. Sean Marks, my GM, said, no. He's too valuable. I'm going to put a price tag that you have to come meet, right? So there's a difference there, too, in how players respond to this. Nobody's wrong in any of this, as you mentioned before, but I just think it is comical. Like, the better you're playing, the more confident you are about yourself, the easier it is to kind of go, yeah, whatever. You don't think it's good we're winning? That's your problem. You're not a real fan. Other side of the coin is, yeah, I could see that. That's interesting. My numbers go down a little bit here. I can kind of get where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, I mean, Claxton, who knows how he feels with the season. We know that the stats haven't been good. The overall performance, just from like a net rating standpoint, has been bad. It hasn't exactly passed the eye test. Although I will say from an eye test standpoint, it's gotten better lately. So it's like, I think that there has been like sort of a shift in his game, and his defense has been, I think, better. I think there was times earlier in the season where it was kind of like unclear. It felt like a little going through the motions. Now I don't feel like that's happening lately. I don't know. Sometimes it's tough with the eye test. I know, we rely on stats a lot. But I just want to believe that that's the case. Now, there's been a few times where I was like, it looks great. And then the box score, it's like, I felt like that looked great, but they kind of lost all the minutes. I'm not really sure like what's happening. So I know you're like tongue in cheek a little bit with like why he would respond like that. I think it's mostly just like a diplomatic answer around. It is, by the way, good for him for saying, hey, I understand why this is the case. Like this
that does seem to be the gripe here, is like that Cam Johnson was like, nah, I'm not here for it. Where Claxton said, hey, I get it. Like, I get it. There's a thing here that could be happening, and the fans have been frustrated. And he, too, by the way, drafted by the organization, right? So he's kind of walked through this as well. He's been through iterations where they were bad and scrappy, and then all of a sudden superstars come in. It could mean great things for his career. They come and go very quickly, right? He gets kind of pulled in and out of what is his role. Ben Simmons now is better than me on this. Nic Claxton probably has a more interesting journey as a Brooklyn Net, certainly, than even Cam Johnson, who's been through a lot in his short time as well.
And the organization has done right by both guys, paid them both probably slightly above market at the time.
That's true.
And so they both got above market contracts, by percentages. I mean, Claxton's decreases, so maybe 3 years from now, that looks like he got underpaid. It's like a little hard to tell with him, but either way, they both took generational money, right? $100 million contracts from the team. Yep. Both deserved it. So all good. And you're right to say that, Claxton's journey is kind of the whole arc, right? Like he's here sort of before that group and then maintains through it and then kind of comes out the other side. Was still on the team, gets paid, and they've done all right with him too. They promoted the brands, like the fashion stuff he does. Like they've been really like very pro Nic Claxton along the way. So maybe that's part of where like the diplomatic answer comes from too, is that he feels probably rightfully so, sort of just like, what's the word? Like he's like they're tied together. Like he's loyal. Jeez, I couldn't think of the word loyal.
That's a simple one, but you have a bigger brain than me, buddy. So I didn't want to get in your way there.
Not right there. I didn't.
Honestly, I've been talking about too, just as a quick side note, before we started, I said, I was thinking about starting to refer to Doug as Big Dog, he's got that kind of energy about him. We all know what he brings to the table. But after that, I just, I don't know.
I couldn't come up with the word loyal. Dogs are nothing but loyal, and this guy couldn't even come up with the stupid word. So anyway, I think that like Claxton, giving a diplomatic answer along those lines makes sense, because it's like, well, I've been here through a lot of different iterations of this team. I kind of see how this goes. If I feel like I'm going to be here for a long time, it like definitely for sure doesn't get paid to get mad at the fans.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest too, it's like sometimes hard to know we said this, many Twitter is vocal, but Twitter is not the whole fan base. Like it can feel like that. It can feel like that at times, but it's just not. It's just not. So I know we mention it a lot because it is a good place for like kind of back and forth and discourse, and it's fun. But there's other places for this too. Like there's plenty of other discussions happening elsewhere. So I get that like it can feel sometimes like an online social discussion is the vocal minority for like the entire fan base. And I also don't think that's true too. We've heard from plenty of people along the way, believe me, that want this team to win as many games as possible. There are lots of people out there that want this team to win. Lots. I know because they talk to me. So I talk to you. So like, we just know this to be the case. So I don't think it's like the whole fan base that wants this.
By the way, and not to segment off different social platforms, like YouTube usually is like a lot more kind of 50-50. Which side do you fall on? Win as many games as possible. They have to be tanking. And I think you're right. You know, another place where you don't get the same type of ire in terms of wins, it's at the arena. Like the fans that are at the games, when you watch them on TV, when they're hitting these big shots late and D'Lo's knocking them down, the crowd's erupting. He hit a game winner a few games ago, and it was like, yeah. So you're right to bring it up. And I thought about that coming in. So I'm glad you reminded me of it. It's like, yes, there is a segment of the fan base. And by the way, this is true in every walk of life. And this feels like a big, a Doug, oh boy, it's a tongue twister, a Doug big dogism, which would be like, these people are in every walk of life. And I don't mean it, overly negative, but if you live in that world where like everything is nothing ever works out for you, it's always the wrong side of the coin. You step in the puddle while everyone else stays dry, whatever it is, you bring that energy to everything. And I think that permeates, especially in sports, to such a high level. Or you got to take it, life is a mixed bag and there's ups and downs, there's highs and lows. It doesn't always work out and you see where it goes, right? So I think that's a part of it too. It's personality based as well when it comes to these kind of things.
And you'll just end up hearing sometimes from the most vocal people tend to be the most negative, the most negative people tend to be the most vocal because it's just much easier to spout that off. And it's just easier to spout that off. And it's just like not as hard to just kind of sit back if you have a good thought and just be like, I'll just keep the good thought to myself. Like, cause I don't want to I don't need to like join this little, swirling downward party.
Because by the way, too, and now we're like diverting even away from sports. But when you're like, well, glass half full. Am I right, guys? Boy, the vocal minority that are negative, they don't even exactly. Boo, get off the stage. My life stinks. What's your problem?
Must be nice. Yeah, must be nice.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, it's sometimes a no-win situation to try to bring positivity to it. That being said, it is a mixed bag. It's understood when you come from any of these different angles, and it's understood the way Cam Johnson responds, the way Nicholas Claxton responds, and frankly, as we've seen from Jordy Fernandez too, the way that he responds when other teams, maybe other coaches, disrespect the Nets and their organization and what they think they're capable of. Coming up here in a second. Got to talk about D'Angelo Russell. We'll throw this question out. Got a response on a couple of different responses on this one. Also, maybe the schedule ahead, but something a little special here to close out today's Fan Take Friday. We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get that, tell you about our friends over at FanDuel and the game tips off NBA actions. Just get started. No better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. Even if you miss opening tip, no big deal. Just get in there in the fourth quarter. Stay in the action. You're looking for a bigger payout, can combine those live bets into a same game parlay. You get the live betting feature, keeps every moment of the game exciting. And maybe you're back in the Nets. Maybe you're just one of those teams that doesn't want to back the Nets. You want to have a little bit of emotional hedge in there. Also, too, we're coming up on the break. Don't think it's just basketball over here. They got tennis, basketball, PGA Tour, USA Finland. I don't even know what that is. It's up there on FanDuel. It's nothing.
It's hockey, baby. Your favorite sport.
Oh, is it? I do. I could have 15 guesses. I couldn't have gotten that. I guess I could have bet 15 guesses. On that note, right now, new FanDuel customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA.
All right, my friends, as we tie a pretty little bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, Fan Take Friday, all kinds of stuff going. I got to tell you, I got a bit of Friday energy to myself right now. I'm feeling good. Nice. There was, as we talked about last episode, and decided, you know what? It's too big. It's too juicy. Let's save it for Friday. And that was D'Angelo Russell, the way he's been performing this year, and whether or not he could be a part of the Nets' future. And you started to say in our last episode that it's kind of in that weird spot where Brooklyn's going to have the money. They're going to be bringing a lot of young players. They'll probably have a little bit of cash to throw around. We did hear from Ricky C. White on this one, who said if Tank is off next season, yes to re-signing D'Lo for around 3 for 45. No strong reaction, by the way, to the CJ Tank comments, and appreciates Claxton comments. So there you go. Do you think, like, just first of all, 3 for 45? Is that easy to cut that check if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you're kind of, it's going to be another season, maybe something like what we're seeing right now?
Oh, I think that would be something they would sign. I mean, I think he could probably get more somewhere else than that. That's my guess. And so it's a little hard to know. It's going to be a little weird. I mean, the NBA free agency's gotten a little tricky with just like understanding some of this, like, I'll call it like middle tier value or middle tier kind of player. The guy who's like not big enough, not good enough to really be a game changer. It's a little hard to see how they're going to like be on the court in a playoff series, which is kind of what you're talking about with some of these guys, right? Like, are you going to be able to play in a playoff series? Like, for some of these good teams, I'm not sure D'Lo would be there, right? And so it gets a little tricky with money. I'm not the best at stuff like this, so I want to be really careful. I mean, does that strikes me as low for him? And then I also start thinking like, well, I'm not sure who are the other teams that are coming out of the woodwork to like just have a bidding war on him either. So I don't know. It simultaneously seems low and it seems high to me. I'm just not exactly. I want to look up something real quick. I don't know. What was your reaction to this?
Yeah, well, I mean, remember he was making 17 million on the Lakers. And now there's reasons beyond just, behind the scenes, it didn't fit in with what they were doing there, whatever it was. But the general idea was that he got overpaid for what his talent is, what his skill is, what he brings to the court. So on that end of it, I go, like, to your point, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, 15 million a year. I mean, 17 million seemed too rich for teams. They're trying to get rid of him, right? The flip side of this, I'm like, by NBA contract standards and by net standards, well, 15 million AAV for a player that can run the point for you, that can do things offensively, like that can take over games for small stretches, that's playing with a lot of young guys right now, and you could only anticipate this team getting better over the next couple of draft classes. Like, it's not hard to squint and see that and say, I'll put it this way. I would find it really hard to give that contract to D'Lo and see myself a season later going, ugh. Well, you hate to have that number on the books. Like, there's just no world, right? It seems very friendly for both sides. The curiosity for me is like, where does D'Lo think he is? Where do other teams think D'Lo is? And is the discrepancy whether or not playoff caliber teams are willing to spend a bit more for a guy like him versus is it really just some of those others, the lower end of the league, like the Brooklyn Nets right now, who would be willing to pay extra money for a player with his skill set, his age, everything else?
Yeah, it's just so tricky. Like, again, I would say one place that I'm not great at sometimes is like numbers. With the actual numbers.
Math, bad.
Well, math, I think fine. Like value of contract wise, like that's something that that's just not something that like rolls off the tongue. Certain things do, and that's just one isn't. So that's where I get kind of caught in between. It's mostly because I do think that there's like a shift happening here with where guys like this in this age range are getting signed to. And that's like the other hard part, which I think is like where we, even where it might have been anchored in like some, like this older thing where it's like, oh, this kind of guy got this, even like, frankly, the D'Lo thing, he's probably his own good example where it's like, oh, in the past, he got 17 million. Well, he just got traded for like a 3-and-D wing, right? And that was kind of in some second round picks because they clearly didn't want any part of this when it came to playoffs or whatever. And so even on a team where that maybe should have kind of worked with LeBron a little bit. And so I guess a little confused about like who is actually, it's mostly like who's coming knocking for like what team is coming knocking at 3 for 15 on this. I just don't, he's not an example, but like, Tyus Jones he's better than Tyus Jones, but like Tyus Jones just got paid $2 million for a 1-year contract to go play, to kind of like prove it contract. He's better than that. Is he 7 million or sorry, is he 7x that at 15 million? Like, I don't think so. And so now that I say that, I'm like, well, that probably seems like too much. I actually just don't even think the Nets are going to do it because I just don't think they want to be tied to the money. Like they turned down a deal with Memphis because like John Conchar made $6 million 1 year extra of a year they didn't want to pay anything. It's like, and so it was like, I think that's where I can see like 1 year. Maybe they like overpay for one. Maybe that's like the realistic thing. They overpay for 1 year and maybe have like a tradable contract on the books that they could ship out to match money for something else.
And that's probably a nice sell. That's probably a nice sell for D'Lo. That's a really good possibility if we're speculating. Hey, you're going to make a big chunk of money here, and when it comes to the deadline, we'll be in a position to maybe be able to put you on a contending team again, someone that's going on a deep playoff run, right? Like that probably
like you're in the tradable zone, and we've seen that happen before too. I mean, like these like tradable zone contracts where it's like, this is going to be able to either match money or not match it for a superstar, but like we'll be able to aggregate it easier. And sometimes you see like these guys, like Myers Leonard got paid a contract this a couple of years ago. It was like a contract specifically to trade. It was like $9 million. It was like, this is exactly what we need to sign to like aggregate. It was something like that. And you sometimes see these like very tradable numbers, knowing that they're just going to be like sort of expiring deals. It's an overpay, but when the rubber hits the road and we need to match money with something, you're kind of going to be the guy. And so don't, maybe rent, don't buy in the area. Right. And so it's like, that's kind of like what we're looking at. I don't know. I'm kind of making that up, but
no, but it's just like a bummer too. Cause a lot of guys go through this, like Dennis Schroeder, gets brought in, and I know you always say all the right things, right? He said, I want to stay here and make roots in Brooklyn. Then he gets traded in a deal and doesn't even stay on that team. He ends up getting dumped off on another team. Like, it's a bummer just from a player perspective. Even if you're D'Angelo Russell, listen, he's made money in his career. So it's not, we're not sitting here begging for forgiveness, but it's unfortunate, especially I always think from a fan perspective, right? Because D'Lo is tied to that great, plucky team from a handful of years ago that made them attractive for superstars. Guess what? You all should have seen this coming, right? Same kind of plucky team. Now they're doing it in the worst possible year to be heading in that direction. I got to cut this short here. I don't want to hear anything else about basketball. This last Fan Take Friday question comes from yours truly. And it's really, I asked this to the universe. Anyone in the room, feel free to raise your hand. Have you aided in the safety and well-being of any elderly women in the near to recent past?
Not elderly. I'll say it's not elderly. So real quick, I told Adam, it's like, you got to ask me about what happened to me this morning. So I sit down in my office. Adam knows my office like sits against like a sort of like a busier road that leads into town where we live. And the windows closed and everything. And I hear, help. It sounded like a kid. I was like, that sounds like maybe it's a kid playing outside. I don't know.
Goes,
of course. Of course I ignored it. Got to get to work. It's time for work. Right. But then it keeps going on. It's so annoying. It's like, help. So I go outside. It's a person across the street from an attic window. They're hanging out. It's a woman hanging out like an attic window saying, I'm locked in here. My dog kicked the door behind me in the attic and the doorknob fell out and I don't have my phone and I can't get out. I'm trapped. So I was like, okay, obviously knight in shining armor. I'm going to help. So I go over there. So I was like, okay, I can help you, but like, what's your dog like? And she's like,
right.
Well, here comes every dog owner. You ready? He's really nice, but, he was also aggressive enough to lock me in the attic, like to kick the door behind me and like lock me up here. Also doesn't like men, barks at men, code for, and he's like a German Shepherd / like massive dog mix or something like that. And so I was like, right. So I go to the back door. Then. It's also got like a 5%, like someone locked me up here vibe and I'm about to like take you prisoner kind of thing going on here. But like, and so, because I'm the only one there to help. So I go to the back door. This dog, I'm not going to say it looked like Hercules from the Sandlot, but when you're by yourself standing at the back door with a dog, the dog looked massive. And so I turned right back around. And went back, turned the window. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. But I was like, I'm not doing it. But I'll wait here till the police come. I was like, I'll call the police. They have a pension, and if they get hurt in the line of duty, like they're good for life. If the dog falls to death.
This story doesn't end with that. They didn't shoot the dog, did they?
No, but I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here. The guys get there. They're great. I call. I was like, I'll wait for the police to come. The guys get there. They look at themselves. They're all like, we're not going in there either. Like, so we're all three. Well, now all three of us are standing there at the back door. Again, I'm not getting paid for this. At least these guys are on the hourly rate with the with the full bennies. But like and the pension. So now we're all standing there essentially doing that. I was like, look, you guys can do whatever, draw down on the dog. I don't care, but I'm not going in this back door. So they basically rock, paper, scissors to each other. And then they eventually, breach the back door and get the girl out. So that was my morning. That was my morning. I would call myself like 3/4 of a knight in shining armor, because I did get up and go over there,
Mhm.
and I waited till the real men arrived, and then I went home.
Yeah. But then, and by the way, later on, I associated myself with all those men being on the same level. I will just say, for me personally, before we got the door, typically when a doorknob falls out of the door, it means you can just open the door yourself. It doesn't get jammed shut because all the all the hardware kind of becomes loose. So that woman,
I didn't get the sense
was
that
trapped
this
in a prison
person
of her own
Okay, I
making.
will
Yeah.
say this, and I hope she's not a listener. I don't think she is. I
Subscribe.
did not
Don't
get the sense that this was the best problem solver in the world. Like, if I'm just being perfectly honest about, like, if I was to make a snap judgment
Yeah.
about, like, this person seemed lovely, very nice, very
Yep.
nice. I
Trapped in a
wouldn't
window.
put like a bunch of problems in front of her and like want her to like solve them for me.
Yeah.
So
Make me-
like,
making sandwiches and snacks, maybe, you know, relaxing by the pool, great activities. But
get
getting in
locked
and
in
out
the
of rooms,
basement, go in the attic by your dog.
Hmm.
Go for it. Otherwise, I'm not sure I'd put her in charge of too much else. Okay.
Oh,
With that
poor
note, we're going to
Jerry.
get out of here. We make sure you are subscribed over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Free for you. Just a couple clicks really helps us. Subscribe wherever you listen.
Just one of the best basketball podcasts out there. I'm gonna say that about ourselves right now. That's not even the quote yet. I just want people to know that. And then, of course, forever Squints.
Oh gosh, one of the all-time great poets. And he got married to the girl he really wanted. We will be back again next week.
Play that one. Play that one real smart around the pool.
Talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball. Yeah.